spend a moment reviewing the note that we concluded on in the previous session, which will follow right on in the new reading material tonight. So it says the Holy Spirit will teach you to perceive beyond your own existing belief, because truth is beyond belief, and Holy Spirit's perception is true. And then the profound statement, the whole purpose of this course is to teach you that your ego is unbelievable and will forever be unbelievable. So now you have a choice. Do you believe it, or do you withdraw your belief from it? So it goes on to say, who made the ego by believing the unbelievable cannot make this judgment alone. Can't make the judgment alone that the ego is not believable. We need help. So by accepting the atonement for yourself, you are deciding against the belief that you can be alone, joining the Holy Spirit. For this, thus dispelling the idea of separation and affirming your true identification with the whole kingdom, literally part of you. This identification is as beyond doubt as it is beyond belief. Your wholeness has no limits because being is infinity. And I would have preferred being to be capitalized here. It's an attribute. It is a name, a symbol given to the infinite creation and the infinite one, the infinitude. So your wholeness is a part of infinite being. It has no limits. It's literally part of you. So that was and this is a form of your higher identity. So the Course helps us to shift from a body-centric ego identity into a new identity, but it's not one you have to conjure up on your own. It's one that is given as the eternal truth. It's an identification with with the kingdom of heaven as literally part of you. So that was the note that we concluded on in the unbelievable belief. With that, we move on to what I think is just the second part of that teaching, which has to do with the extension of the kingdom. Hello and welcome to Miracles on High Plains. My name is Jonica, and our reader for this session is Julie C.
Only you can limit your creative power, but God wills to release it. He no more wills you to deprive yourself of your creations than he wills to deprive himself of his. Do not withhold your gifts to the sonship, or you withhold yourself from God. Selfishness is of the ego, but self-fullness is of spirit, because that is how God created it. The Holy Spirit is in the part of the mind that lies between the ego and the spirit, mediating between them, always in favor of the spirit. To the ego, this is partiality, and it responds as if it were being sided against. To spirit, this is truth, because it knows its fullness and cannot conceive of any part from which it is excluded.
Mm-hmm. So there's a number of ideas here that are not often talked about. And so the first one that we've seen before is regarding your creative power. We were created by the Creator, and part of that inheritance is creative power is given to us by the very nature of our being. And that creative power comes from God. And so it has attributes which we're just beginning to understand. And this is one of the things would be the ability to change your mind is part of your creative power. The ability to make love visible and make relationships that are loving is a part of that. It goes on and on and on. It's our purpose here is just to say that it's an unlimited power, but you can limit it in the ego state of mind. The only person that can limit your creative power is you. Remember, God's will is to release your creative power, to extend the kingdom, to extend all the attributes of love, joy, and heaven. So that's the plan, and we are advised not to withhold our gifts, our heavenly gifts, from others. For if we do, we what's the psychological term? We inhibit ourselves. We become all bottled up by withholding these gifts. And many people do this without knowing, of course. They're innocent. They don't know, but they are withholding their spiritual nature. So we have a new term that we'll introduce here called self-fullness, which is of the spirit. This is how God created yourself, your spiritual self is complete and whole, lacking nothing. This is the contrasted with selfishness of the ego. So self-fullness is engaged in a network of the sonship, a family, if you will, whereas the ego wants to isolate into a mode of selfishness. So, all right, we'll go on from there.
Spirit knows that the awareness of all its brothers is included in its own, as it is included in God. The power of the whole sonship and of its creator is therefore Spirit's own fullness, rendering its creations equally whole and equal in perfection. The ego cannot prevail against a totality that includes God, and any totality must include God. Everything he created is given all his power because it is part of him and shares his being with him. Creating is the opposite of loss, as blessing is the opposite of sacrifice. Being must be extended. That is how it retains the knowledge of itself. Spirit yearns to share its being as its creator did. Creating by sharing, its will is to create. It does not wish to contain God, but wills to extend his being. The extension of God's being is Spirit's only function.
So I'm really drawn to this latter portion of this paragraph that talks about being. And we really have not explored that idea of what does it mean? What does being, capital being, mean? But we've got some clues here. It is perhaps the biggest idea you could ever conceive of. So think in terms, it's a lofty idea. It is a term to refer to pure spiritual nature. So let's think of eternal spirit, universal truth, infinite beauty, unlimited creative power are all attributes of being, and it cannot be contained. Its very essence is to extend into infinity. It's a property of it. And your spiritual nature is of this essence. And so the property is that it must be extended. And here's where the two, the confusion of the ego and your proper function, stand in stark contrast. The Holy Spirit would have you give all to all and extend the gifts that you of your inheritance to everyone forever and always. And ego would have you be selfish and withhold. So very different here. So with focusing just for a moment on the properties of being, the way in which you retain your understanding of being is by extending it. And spirit yearns to share its being. This is a property of the Creator. The Creator shared his being with all of creation. And we, being united with that function, yearn to extend that, continue to extend that being. In this way, do I want to say this? The funny term, we're actually all salesmen for the Creator is what came into my mind. The Creator created all of us, and we are, then our function is to go out and, I'm making light of this here, peddle the creative plan in our own life. A more accurate way would just say that we are co-creators and that we wind up becoming channels for his love. That would be a more polite or correct way of saying it. So spirit yearns to create its being. It's, again, we were created by sharing, and it cannot be extended. It wills to extend its being. So again, this is a very lofty idea. It won't all sink in and make, perfect, meaningful at first, but it does grow on you, as many of you have testified, ideas that you might have read in the previous year and just wondered, what does that mean? Now are meaningful in your life. That's the way meaning grows in your idea. So the summation of this is that the extension of God's being is your only function. Said in different ways, is an infinitely loving creator created you for the purpose of extending love everywhere and forever. That's your function. Now, in the ego state of confusion, all that is inhibited and blocked, and when we're out of touch with all that. But this is the return, the recognition, the remembering of God and his plan for us.
The extension of God's being is spirit's only function. Its fullness cannot be contained, any more than can the fullness of its creator. Fullness is extension. The ego's whole thought system blocks extension and thus blocks your only function. It therefore blocks your joy, so that you perceive yourself as unfulfilled. Unless you create, you are unfulfilled. But God does not know unfulfillment, and therefore you must create. You may not know your own creations, but this can no more interfere with their reality than your unawareness of your spirit can interfere with its being.
So remember those two terms that we introduced earlier, ego selfishness and spirit self-fullness. Well, what does this have to do with happiness? It has everything to do with whether or not you experience happiness, because the ego's whole entire thought system blocks extension, therefore blocks the natural function, purpose of your life, is inhibited and restricted, blocked even from your awareness. And this blocks your joy. And thus, in that ego state, perceive yourself as lacking, unfulfilled, unhappy camper. So, if you can, by faith, believe this, what we have here is the solution to becoming happy. The solution to becoming happy, translated in these terms, is to shift from ego selfishness to spirit self-fullness, which implies that what was given to you in creation begins to function as a life purpose. It gives meaning to your life, and you truly find yourself. You awaken to your true nature by participating in this extension of your being, which is of the Creator's being. Heather?
Yeah, I just really caught this time, whether it's talking about selfishness versus self-fullness. And the way I was raised is it was about selflessness. This is very different, the selflessness, the Christian teaching is you should be selfless. That is not what this is saying. You need to be self-fullness is a completely different idea, that we're full as a child of God. We're not to be selfless. That's a real switch in it. I love how the Holy Spirit switches those words. I've never seen a word like self-fullness before. I just really noticed at this time. That's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. No, thank you, Heather. It's very true. This is a correction to that traditional Christian idea. But I might also say, if I wander over into Buddhism, I can find plenty of examples of selflessness there. They don't really adhere to a concept of a unique self. And so the idea appears, I'm just saying, in many thought systems, in nihilism and other philosophic teachings. There's great confusion around the self, and so this would be pointing us in a new direction towards having the fullness of our being. We are a part of a dynamic, perfect, created self. And that's where we find our joy and happiness. Noelle?
Adding to what Heather just said, selflessness often carries self-sacrifice, martyrdom. And that's what I learned. And that's completely opposite of self-fullness, in which when we fulfill ourselves, it can't help but spill over into joy and help other people.
Yes. Yes, thank you. David?
I always have seen the word selfless not capitalized, because they're not talking about selfless in the capital S self. That's why self-fullness is a capital S self. Selflessness is a small s self.
Yeah. Yeah. So ego, selfness,
Correct.
meaning little, separated, deprived, versus spirit, self-fullness, being full, gifted, blessed. Very different concepts. And we're introducing these as ideas, but when if we allow these ideas to exist within our mind, gradually they grow on us, and we begin to change our thinking, leaning more and more towards putting our faith and belief in self-fullness. And eventually you come to see yourself in these new terms. That's the whole idea here, is a shift in identification from the thought system of the ego to the thought system that's being introduced by Holy Spirit. So unless you extend your true nature, you are unfulfilled. It doesn't mean that you've lost your true nature, but it does mean that you've become unaware of it. It will continue to exist in its pure and perfect state deep within you. But as we know, we can turn our attention completely away from it and forget all about it. And that will then result in what we said our true nature will be blocked, and we will perceive ourselves as missing something, as unfulfilled. This is the foundation of meaninglessness, of nihilism, which seems to be growing in the popular media, of a sense of life has no meaning. There's nothing that makes me happy. People have, well, I don't want to get into commentary about that. So these two are very different experiences. This is the key to happiness, is learning to extend forever.
The kingdom is forever extending because it is in the mind of God. You do not know your joy because you do not know your own self-fullness. Exclude any part of the kingdom from yourself, and you are not whole. A split mind cannot perceive its fullness and needs the miracle of its wholeness to dawn upon it and heal it. This reawakens the wholeness in it and restores it to the kingdom because of its acceptance of wholeness. The full appreciation of the mind's self-fullness makes selfishness impossible and extension inevitable. That is why there is perfect peace in the kingdom. Spirit is fulfilling its function, and only complete fulfillment is peace.
Mm-hmm. So let's view this as a transition from being unaware of our self-fullness. And Heather and some others acknowledge, I never heard that term before, or certainly never heard it used this way. So let's just assume that this is new for all of us, or at least the way we're beginning to understand it in terms of our infinite being fulfilled and being extended, where the meaning we give to it is emerging here. But let's view this as a transition from being unaware or asleep to our true nature versus waking up and learning to appreciate it and participate as an extension of it. So a split mind cannot perceive its fullness. It needs a miracle to dawn upon it and heal it. Think of that as a reawakening to a wholeness that already exists within. And this restores the mind, the awareness to the kingdom. How or why? because you have accepted it into your mind, believed the idea, and made a leap of faith, the exercise of your faith to say, I believe this is true for me. That process of acceptance and belief and faith grows and grows until one trusts that idea and is willing to entirely discard the ego's notions of deprivation, inadequacy, meaninglessness, et cetera, et cetera. So it's an acceptance of wholeness, of which in that process is the experience of understanding what we're doing right now. We're learning to understand what this means. And as that brings clarity to your mind, the understanding transitions into appreciation, which I will take liberty to interpret as not only does your mind understand it, but your heart connects with it and it feels right to you. It's really your soul is tuning in to that which your mind has now accepted. Appreciation feels good and makes selfishness impossible. The extension is inevitable. And all this, as you can imagine, clears away the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. This is why perfect peace is in the kingdom, because this means you are now participating in that purpose for which the Creator has given you. Happiness comes natural to those who participate in their inherent nature being functioning in this life. The opposite of that is true as well. When your inherent nature is inhibited and blocked from awareness, one feels unsatisfied. One feels empty, like something is missing. So we really want this, and it all begins with believing, accepting into your mind, applying. You have to then make the leap of faith, and your little leap of faith will be complemented by the limitless faith of the Holy Spirit. It's not that you have to have a graduate degree in faith. You have to apply the faith, whatever faith you have at the time, and the Holy Spirit will work with what you're willing to give her. So, did you know that you were going to get the recipe for happiness?
Your creations are protected for you because the Holy Spirit, who is in your mind, knows of them and can bring them into your awareness whenever you will let Him. They are there as part of your own being because your fulfillment includes them. The creations of every son of God are yours, since every creation belongs to everyone, being created for the sonship as a whole.
So I think we have a few more minutes here. Let's have a pop quiz. And you're invited to participate audibly here around your creations. What do we know or think we know about what Miracles says what are they? What are your creations? By the way, this is a bit abstract, and I am willing to go on record to say that if we found 1,000 people online that read A Course in Miracles, you'd be lucky to find 50 that would have a clue around what your creations are. Julie?
Acts of love, of forgiveness.
Love and forgiveness adds to your creations. Yes. Susie?
My creations are everything I share with God.
Yes. Yes, you don't have to. Yes, it all comes from God and you are now participating in it. Yes. Heidi?
Are my creations that are not created by me? My creations are created by the Holy Spirit.
So that's a nice distinction. You're asking a question. So
Correct.
if I were to restate you would say my creations are not created by me, but by the Holy Spirit. I think the nuance to that would be, Heidi, is all your creations have to be done in the light of the Holy Spirit. But the reason why they're your creations is because you participate as a co-creator of them. For in other words, it's not the Holy Spirit forcing this stuff on you, but by you saying, yes, in this moment, I'm willing to be kind. Yes, in this moment, I'm willing to forgive or to love. So you are you are the determining factor in whether or not these creations occur. You have to be willing to say yes to them.
So I have to see them. I have to be willing to see them.
To participate in them. So a lot of times, Heidi, these things slip by without us even knowing it. Like you pass someone by and you just smile and your eyes sparkle and you see in the moment, like you're worth my attention to. Hello. You don't really realize you're participating in an act of exchanging, of recognition, but you are. The Holy Spirit knows you are. And she never forgets your creations. Noelle.
My creations are seeing other beings as whole and as one with me.
They certainly are. They certainly are. And Julie, I can't tell if your hand went up again. Okay. All right. So all that is of your creations, and as very good, by the way, because I think most miracle students would kind of get confused around that. So one of the attributes of the creator is that it's all for sharing, and that your creations are not selfish to you alone. They are shared. And so this is the one place that I recall it's stated in the course that the creations of every son of God, which are of every son of God are yours, since every creation belongs to everyone. Your creations are in design intended to be shared. And so that's an attribute of your creations. You don't keep them exclusively to yourself. You were a co-creator of them, but so to speak, you add them to the pool of the entire sonship. And then all the creations of everyone else are also added to the pool. And this is the cosmic, I'll say it in other terms. The cosmic mind of God expands and grows with these creations, and you, have access to these creations. They are a part of your most holy mind. And so they all belong to us as a whole, not as separate, fragmented individuals. It's an abstract idea because you can't see it, taste it, or touch it. But you do understand kindness and love and joy and happiness. We're just saying that when you share that with another individual, the Holy Spirit, so to speak, recognizes it and accepts it and adds it to this pool of creations by the sonship. And later on, when we fully awaken, all this will become very meaningful because all these creations are going to be there in front of you, and it'll be a cause for. This is what abundance and totality is all about. Nothing is ever lost. It's all for everyone. Remember the principle of the Holy Spirit to have, give all to all.
You have not failed to increase the inheritance of the sons of God, and thus have not failed to secure it for yourself. Since it was the will of God to give it to you, he gave it forever. Since it was his will that you have it forever, he gave you the means for keeping it, and you have done so. Disobeying God's will is meaningful only to the insane. In truth, it is impossible. Your self-fullness is as boundless as God's. Like his, it extends forever and in perfect peace. Its radiance is so intense that it creates in perfect joy, and only the whole can be born of its wholeness.
So I had previously put my little star cloud there, which usually means, wow, pay attention to this. But honestly, in this very moment, I don't know why I was so elated. So only the whole can be born of its wholeness. And I'm just a little blanking right now. All right, so your self-fullness is as boundless as God's self-fullness. Like his self-fullness, yours extends forever. Oh, this is a big idea. So we are talking about your self-fullness. Well, let's talk about the properties of that self-fullness. And as David was indicating earlier, this is a capital S. This doesn't mean your individual isolated self. This is the holy self of God. You can think of it as this is us all, meaning this is all of creation. Like God's self-fullness, your self-fullness extends forever and in perfect peace. It has a radiance to it on a spiritual domain, on a spiritual level. Remember, the only thing that gets into these creations, this is Heidi's question, the only thing that gets accepted as your creations are those things that are done in the light of the Holy Spirit and with the accord of the laws of creation. The Holy Spirit accepts them, says, yes, well, that's what we're talking about. And so they radiate so intense that it creates in perfect joy for those, promotes joy, and only the whole can be born of its wholeness. So this is really a profoundly spiritual idea. that this self-fullness, which is now we understand it to be a collective self-fullness and belonging to the entire sonship, which is now we're learning is like God's self-fullness, that it has the same properties of extending forever, it radiates, and it has the ability to create and to replicate what is called wholeness. And we're getting ourselves into deeper water, but suffice it to say that in the universal age to come, this pool of divine creation is going to become extremely meaningful because it extends forever. It is a part of a divine plan that goes far beyond time and space. It continues on as a component of all creation. It radiates in a way that itself can give or origin to other divine entities. And I really don't want to say too much more about it because but there's a whole eternal universal age implied in the future of your self-fullness. It is not just an idea for now. It's an idea forever that has, stay tuned, more will be revealed.
Be confident that you have never lost your identity and the extension which maintain it in wholeness and peace. Miracles are an expression of this confidence. They are reflections of both your proper identification with your brothers and of your awareness that your identification is maintained by extension. The miracle is a lesson in total perception. By including any part of totality in the lesson, you have included the whole.
Mm-hmm. So this is the final paragraph in this section, and as is often the case, in the final paragraph, they give us this far-reaching set of statements that would never be understood if it hadn't been introduced by the materials earlier in this section. So it's talking about confidence in your identity. Confidence, this is the assurance that it involves faith and trust. It's being assured of the Spirit's plan is the truth. It's your truth and the truth. It's a confidence that, and miracles are a way of expressing this confidence. You have to be a faithful, trusting, and confident in the laws of healing which bring about miracles. By participating in those miracles, they reflect your proper identification, meaning your true eternal identification with your brothers. And they also reflect that you are aware that your spirit identity, your self-fullness is maintained by extension. It can be blocked temporarily, but the awareness of self-fullness continues on, becomes consistent by extending it. And okay, so that we know already that these things have to be shared. That's why to have, give all to all. You got to keep giving. Well, the miracle, what we're referring to, there's a term here called total perception. So let's put that in a field of ideas. There's false perception of the ego. There's partial perception. Someone learning the Course in Miracles in the first year has got some partial perception of the guidance of the Holy Spirit and the laws of God, but it's not total perception as yet. So total perception would be to complete this A Course in Miracles, to understand fully what we're talking about here, and not only to intellectually grasp it, but also, as we said earlier, to accept it in your mind, appreciate it with your heart, to become identified with it, is that is who I am. I don't have this ego identity anymore. I think of myself in terms of spiritual light as a co-creator, as an extension of this plan. So the miracle is a lesson that is a part of the big picture of total perception. And then here's the kicker. We've seen this before. If you understand any part of divine love, you are really participating in the whole thing. By including any part of totality in the lesson, what the lesson we mean is the lesson in total perception, by including just a portion of your understanding of totality, which we're referring to in this session, your self-fullness, your relationship to infinite being, by including any part of totality, you have, by definition, you are including the all of totality. You are a little part of totality implies there is a totality, an infinity of creation, of which was the reason why we were all created. It's the essence of what we are. It is our purpose and our function. It extends throughout all of time and space. And then when time and space is finished, it continues to extend beyond time and space into a timeless and spaceless limitlessness that goes on forever and ever. So the miracle is the bridge from partial perception to total perception, which then allows us to transfer into what is known as knowledge. It goes beyond just believing that this is true to a state of full confidence that this is the nature of reality itself. That's the nature of our own true selves, and that it's true for everybody. So those are some big ideas. We are talking, after all, about the extension of the kingdom of heaven. So these are not little ideas by definition. Let's, by way of summarizing some of the thoughts that we spoke about here, remember, there's selfishness of the ego and self-fullness of the spirit. The ego's thought system gets in the way of all the gifts of spirit, blocks your joy and happiness, leaves you feeling empty and meaningless. And so a split mind that is trying to serve two different thought systems cannot perceive this fullness and needs a miracle to restore, to heal the mind. This is what we mean by healing in A Course of Miracles, to heal the sick mind that doesn't even know what it is, doesn't even know what it's doing here, it needs a miracle to dawn upon it and heal its mind. And then the properties that lie deep within you emerge. And that's your self-fullness, of the infinite being of God is boundless and extends forever, brings about perfect peace, has its very own radiance, which would be easy for us to, having never seen it or not being aware of it, we would be inclined to underestimate what we're dealing with here. But no, in truth, it has a radiance so intense that in itself, it creates in perfect joy, and that miracles play a role as a bridge to get to that state. They're expressions of confidence that reflect the truth of what you are in relationship to others, and also reflect your awareness that this truth is kept alive in your mind and in your life by extension. And by the way, the workbook lessons will train your mind to do these things if you persist in them. If you do them once and then set it aside, I've heard of people who set it aside and then they go on, they say, oh, of Course in Miracles, I've done that already. Well, that's okay, perhaps, for somebody that wants to put a pause on their progress here, but your identification is maintained by continuing to extend the idea. And so these ideas go on and on and on. And it's not my intention to keep you here reading more. These are just, there's nothing original here. These are just ways of summarizing what we already said. But let's read this one thing. So we talked about self-fullness and being, which is a symbol, a word that implies the totality of an infinite creation. And totality, the Holy Spirit already knows now that totality is the nature of reality. And the Holy Spirit's gift can help you recognize part of reality. And as we said a moment ago, if you recognize part of totality, then you have appreciated all of it. And this is actually what we will refer to as our normal or natural state of being. The ego state is to be sick is to be unnatural or abnormal. The totality is a part of our natural state of being. Heidi?
Where is all this written in the book somewhere? Like, where did you get all of these?
So these are my summations. I've lifted these partly from the book and then reworded some of it to try to make it concise. So this is I'm responsible.
Okay, could you email it to me, please?
I will post it on the website and I'll send you the link.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome. Susie?
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to the creation thing.
Yeah.
The course has helped me so much. I'm constantly correcting myself.
Mm-hmm.
When I use the word create, when I really mean made, the ego makes and the Holy Spirit or my higher mind or God creates. So it's just been so helpful to me. I just wanted to share that. Like, if I'm having a conversation, I'll be like, that fight was created by blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, that's not the right use of create in my mind. Like, I know this now, and it's very easy now for me to discern between make and create. And it's very helpful in my everyday life, because so I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you did. Those distinctions that are using, we would call part of mastering the language of the Holy Spirit. Those distinctions really help to keep your awareness in line with the laws, so that you're not sloppy in our language. If we were to call people by different names, mistaken names, that would be really sloppy, and mince our words all the time. So part of this program is the translation of language that used to be dominated by a sense of meaningless and sloppiness of the ego, and now they're being elevated to meaningful terms that are rich and actually, I think, very satisfying to know that I'm not talking about making something up with the ego. I'm talking about working with the Holy Spirit to extend the laws, and we are co-creators. This is our function. And so our language then begins to reflect the identity that we now have of being co-creators with Spirit. So thank you for sharing that. All right, friends, I think that's more than enough for one session. I want to thank you, Julie, for reading. Thank you all for participating in the quiz. By the way, you guys nailed your creations. I'm so pleased to hear that from you. And I will post the summary slides on my website. Anybody that would like a copy, I'll send you the URL. But you have to let me know on the chat that you'd like to have that. Maybe in the future, I'll just find a way to do that systematically. So thank you all, and more will be revealed as we continue on. So I will look forward to that time together. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you, Julie.
Namaste, everyone.
Namaste. Thank you, Julie.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks, Jonica.
Peace and
Thanks,
love.
Jonica.
Jonica. Thanks, everybody.
God bless.
Hi, Don.